Thank you, We Give Summit, for having us today. My name is Tanya Smith-Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director of Birth Future Foundation.
And I am Audra Post, and I am one of the co-founders of Birth Future Foundation, and very excited to be here and talking to you about our project.
So we're going to present to you about Birth Future Foundation and the ways in which we are decolonizing philanthropy. Our Birth Future is Midwifery, decolonizing philanthropy to center a racially just and equitable future for birth and midwifery. So first, we want to introduce you to our team. This is a team of fellow activists and advocates and grassroots community folks who come together to become what is our BFF leadership team. Again, I'm Tanya Smith-Johnson, the executive director, but the other folks that we love to, bring into this space with us is Emily Anesta, Chanel Portia Albert, Lauren Brown, Audra Post, who's here with me, Rashonda LeGrand, and Megan Kennedy. And we want to ground ourselves in what Black feminism and reproductive justice is, and making sure that we're doing the work to make sure that we always ground and center the folks who created this philosophy and movement for us. Black feminism and reproductive justice as mutually aligned theories and praxis are described as new ethical standards for philanthropic accountability, from Scott Bray and Dr. McLemore. BFF's mission. Our mission is to support structural change towards racially just and equitable access to midwifery care and the midwifery profession, to implement equitable and ethical grant-making and programming.
So as our Birth Future Foundation, as we developed, we started in 2020 as a collective, and we really wanted to be very intentional about the structure in which we built the foundation of our organization, and to which we created grant-making principles that help guide our philanthropic endeavors. And so we aim to support innovative and reimagined approach to equity and the liberation in midwifery care, midwifery education, and the midwifery profession. We want to support initiatives that dismantle systems of oppression in midwifery care, midwifery education, and the midwifery profession. We see that these are exceptionally important foundation points because we want to make sure that this is reaching the persons who are most in need of the investments. So continuing on with our principles, we want to prioritize resources for Black, Brown, Indigenous, LGBTQIA-led work. We want to fund leadership development and operational expenses as well as projects. Because as we know in the philanthropic world, the behind the scenes is part of what gets overshadowed in the work being done. And so we find it a really important priority to make sure that the organizations can keep functioning and doing the work that is so necessary. We aim to remove barriers to funding with an accessible application process. And we really try to think about those barriers and aim at varying levels to dismantle it and receive feedback on how to make the grantees' experience as functional as possible. And then we want to respect and trust that grantee partnership. And this is going to lead us into some of our actual participatory grant-making practices. So what we did in our first year of development of our organization is we spent a lot of time reflecting and germinating new growth and trying to make sure that the power differentials are being adequately addressed. And part of this was brought to forth by the call of action of the midwifery philanthropic sector would benefit from examining the priorities, goals, and mechanisms in relation to power and the potential for communities to drive knowledge construction, self-determination, community mobilization, and social transformation and policy reform as defined in the research justice methodologies for social change. Again, from the Scott Bray and Dr. McLemore. So this call to action, combined with participatory grantmaking core philosophy of nothing for us without us, led and inspired us to really create and reflect and manifest a toolkit for Birth Futures Foundation's participatory grantmaking. Now, let's take a minute and really kind of think about why we might want to shift these paradigms and look at these practices with greater depth. And westernized standard philanthropic endeavors come with this idea that it's the donors who have a board of people who are in some kind of investment or connection to the donors, and that the donors give to that board, the board makes the decisions, and then the grantees are the recipients. And so what we can see in this philosophy is the haves versus the have-nots and the power differentials and how that is played out and displayed. Now, with participatory grantmaking in our BFF process, we really wanted to address these power differentials. And so in our philosophies, what we've done is we've created an auxiliary team, an advisory committee that comes in for every grant cycle and is comprised of the persons who are the greatest stakeholders of any situation. So for our grant making philosophies, these are going to be the persons who are most invested in the Black, Brown, Indigenous, LGBTQIA initiatives. And these persons are going to come in and create an auxiliary committee who then reviews the grantees, decides and makes the decisions about which ones are prioritized, and makes the funding recommendations that then are handed over to the leadership team. So from here, what we can start to see is this actual shift in the power differential of who makes the decisions, as well as this understanding that it isn't the haves versus have-nots. Because grantees are the ones who are out there doing the work. Therefore, they are the ones who are giving to us all. We are all advancing because of this work. So instead of this idea that it's the donors who have and the grantees who just receive, we want to really reinforce the fact that it is the donors who are receiving by the work that's being done by the grantees. And therefore, we need to know more about what work needs are most prioritized and most necessary. And this is, again, reinforces why having a participatory grant making come and be part of our advising team can understand where on the ground, which communities are in most need at any given time, and therefore be able to redirect where the funding priorities should be. So again, not only is this shifting the power, but it's also inviting more knowledge from the people who are most active on the ground doing the work, and then also getting a collective of ideas and insights versus just a board that has been brought into the space who gets to have the decision-making power. So again, it's reshifting a lot of those powers, as well as giving new incentives and opportunities to different grantees. So what this process looks like in our BFF cycles is that we identify the grant cycle's purpose and put out a call of action, or put out an invite for both grantees, as well as invite community members to come and then be on that advisory committee. And this happens for each grant cycle. For every grant cycle, once we have an advisory committee, and there's always going to be more persons from the community than there are BFF representation. So that way we can make sure the voices of the community are the ones being amplified and honored. So then we have a couple of meetings that come together. We talk about the grantees, we talk about the allotment of money. We take a time, each person reflects and reads each grant proposal, makes their own priorities. Then we come back together, have a discussion about these, and start to rank which grantees we think which grantees have the most reinforcement from the community members. And then we start to identify which ones will be included in that grant cycle and what the funds allocations will be. From here, eventually the committee members make their decisions and their recommendations about which grantees and the amount of funding. That is brought over to the BFF leadership team. And unless the leadership team has very strong opposition and rationale as to why, which ideally is already vetted through the process of making sure that everybody fits to our mission and vision, then those recommendations are the ones that move forth. And so we, as the BFF leadership team, really have great respect for the expertise and insights of those committee members, and great respect of the work and expertise being done by the grantees.
So now you heard about how we put together our grant advisory committees, how we go through the grant making process. And we would like to pay, homage and honor those who have stepped up to sit on the 2 grant cycles that we've had. And we've had a spring and fall 2022 grant cycles. So we like to, acknowledge Jackson Darling, Dr. Annalena Hasberg, Cambrisha Montgomery, Tansy Hill, and Maya Rayner. Those are the members that have, stepped up from community, who gave voice and lent their expertise and their knowing and their wisdom to the grant making process. Along with them were members of BFF, so Rashonda LeGrand, myself. I hold the space more so as a container and help guide conversations. Most of the time, I don't sit for a vote, making sure that we keep that equilibrium of making sure that community is always the loudest voice in the room. And of course, Audra Post.
And I too typically am there more as a facilitator than a voter, and helping to run the behind the scenes of our processes.
So some of the grantees that we've had the honor of hearing about their amazing and beautiful work on the ground, and have been, gracious enough to be able to uplift them and fund the work that they're doing, and so they can continue to water the seeds of all the things that they're doing. Birth Detroit, Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition of Hawaii, the research of Dr. Nadia English Williams, and supporting the Alabama Black Midwives Conference. For this last cycle, we've also were able to even grant more. And this last cycle was opened, more so to the public. The first grant cycle we had invite only as we were figuring out our process. So this cycle we had, even more grantees apply, and we're able to actually, grant, more funds out to various different groups across the country. And to me, it's really important to, highlight and acknowledge that a lot of, these folks who were awarded are doing great and amazing work. Lots of them, they just need seed money to, to either get started or just to continue what they're doing. And we had a high representation of folks from the South. So Granny's Birth Initiative, Mothers for Mothers Postpartum Justice, MAAME Inc., Whitney Williams Black of the Want to Be Well Doula Services, Naturally Nurtured Birth Services, and the Chocolate Milk Cafe.
So you guys have been able to see some of our fabulous grantees. We really do encourage looking at each one of these grantees individually, or check them out on our website. And oops. Sorry.
So here, ways in which you can support, this work, and making sure that Birth Future Foundation is really having the impact that we would love to have. You can participate, donate, you can explore things on our social media where we often highlight other organizations, even if we weren't able to grant them funding, to make sure that they're uplifted and you folks know about them, and connect with us, join our newsletter so you can stay up to date on all things BFF. So you can go to birthfuture.org and get involved. Follow us at Birth Future on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And consider checking out some of these references that help to guide our participatory grant making, as well as our incentives here at Birth Future Foundation.
Thank you so much for having us. We love being able to present the ways in which we at Birth Future Foundation are trying to decolonize not just philanthropy, but the ways in which we fund folks and help share all of the information, all of the wealth of knowledge, and all of the care that they're giving community. Thanks a lot. We Give Summit.
Cheers and thank you.